Good morning. It's 10 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the Finance Administration Committee for May 2nd, 2023. First up on the agenda are public comments. Do we have any public comments?
My name is Dave Barnowski and I vote in Port Sheldon Township. I thought you'd finally come to your senses. I thought this lawsuit was over. Now you've appealed. You've taken the lie that there was a backroom deal, backroom signing of some fake resolution. And I can call it a lie now because I've described to you a lie of omission. You're continuing to smear the names of Justin Roebuck and Matt Fensky, who are not guilty of what your lawyers claim. Who's running the legal policy of Ottawa County? Is it the Coleman Group or is it the commission? Are you really commissioners? You get to sit behind a nice desk. Are you really running this county or not? The lie continues. You're taking it now to the Court of Appeals. Who's in charge? I call on this subcommittee to go into closed session and to discuss this legal policy, this legal, what is it? Farce. Don't let whoever is running this lie to the Court of Appeals run this policy. You are staining your legacy forever. If you do not go into a closed session and withdraw that appeal, you will all buy into the mistake that's being made in your name. Some of you take this seriously. I don't know who the hell's running this county, but they're not doing a good job when they have to count on lies to do it. Fix it. Or get him out of the chair. That's what you should start with. He doesn't belong there. He's running a petty, vindictive vendetta because somebody told him his child had to wear a mask. Boo hoo. Sometimes you have to sacrifice for the greater good. Sometimes you have to care about somebody other than yourself. Change this legal policy, withdraw that appeal, or live with the stain forever.
Good morning.
Good morning, Teresa White, Robinson Township. Why the anger, I don't know, but that lawsuit was never over. And I remember making comment to people to please let them know these counts are not over. That lawsuit was always active, even after, but too many people believe in the media, and it was never over. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Morning.
Morning. Ian Zimmer, Port Sheldon Township. When an investor provides assets to a financial advisor, a fiduciary duty begins. Fiduciary duty is a legal or ethical obligation for one party to act in the best interest of another party, especially in financial matters. Tax dollars held by a county is much the same as money in a mutual fund. An expectation of wise investment practices and non-self-serving churning of investments to advance advisor compensation. Coleman Legal Group and Ottawa County Board are duty bound to answer to taxpayers and county residents. Please include the dollar cost accounting of expenses and billable hours in a by lawsuit format in the county newsletter to county residents. In addition, have the county administrator include this data in his report to the board. I have stated this before. It is very difficult to determine if Coleman Legal stirs up controversy for the board, or if the board stirs the pot for the benefit of Coleman Legal Group, or you're in it together thick as thieves. As long as you throw good money after money ill spent, your actions do not meet a fiduciary duty to Ottawa County. A full accounting of money spent is required for taxpayers to evaluate the tangible return on money spent as directed by actions of this board.
Thank you. Are there any further public comments? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion. I'll second the motion.
Second the motion. Any discussion? All right, moving on to the consent resolution. So do I have an,
Do you want, sorry, vote, do a vote?
oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I didn't put vote down there. I apologize. All
No, you're
right,
fine.
so let me go ahead and have a vote to approve the agenda for today. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those not, say nay. Moving forward, sorry. All right, and we're moving on to the consent resolution. And do I have for action item number 1, the approval of the minutes from April 4th, 2023 Finance Administration Committee meeting? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? Do we need a vote on that one? Yes. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Moving on to the agenda and action items request. And number 1 is a statement of review, and the motion is to approve the statement of review. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Second.
Second. All right, discussion. Seeing no discussion, we can go to a vote. And do we need to have a voice vote for this one? Nope. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Moving on to action item number 2, or action request, and that's accounts payable for March 27th, 2023 through April 21st, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve the general claims amount of $21,039,761,092 as presented in the summary report?
Support.
Support. All right, any discussion?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, on our disbursement list, there's a payment to Common Legal Group of $35,280. This is the first time we've had a disbursement list, I believe, for this year.
Yes.
Do we have an idea about how much we've spent so far with Common Legal Group? At 35,000 over basically a 3-week period, that's around 10,000 per week, which is more than 500,000 per year. Contracted services last year for corporate counsel was around 240. So I wonder if we can get maybe for next finance a more complete breakdown of the vendor cost on that one. I don't know if Karen is here at all, or
I was trying, sorry.
sorry about that, Karen. I didn't mean to surprise you. I just was going through it this morning.
So this is processing that would be for the full month for
Okay.
Corporation Counsel Services.
Right.
I was trying to pull it up. I could have that report for a future meeting, or if you want me to pull it and
Okay.
share it with the committee.
And then can we just get some, I mean, it says March 27 through April 21. But like I said, this is the first time we've seen the actual disbursements for this year. If we get just a full year accounting,
So this
That's
is,
because this is the first time we've ever put the accounts payable in here. That's why you're seeing that.
fair enough.
this is a new format. This
Okay,
is the very first time
okay.
ever, not just this year.
I
but
appreciate,
ever.
I appreciate that,
Right.
Mr. Gibbs, just for reference then, so we can get a full year accounting on some of these disbursements and, you know, if you want to go through the whole list, I'm not sure if that's easy, is that just pressing a button?
And I was
Um,
going to speak about the disbursement list too, so kind of what it is.
For sure,
And then just
for sure.
as far as, and Karen and I talked about it, whether or not it's a monthly expense, a quarterly expense, an annual or a one time. What I wonder too, Commissioner Zelstra, would it be important for us to take a look at other costs? I mean, it's not just our corporation council, but last year, as far as like legal expenses were concerned for the county.
That's fine too. I mean, I'm just looking at the budget for 23.
Right.
And the actuals. Yeah, I mean, if we can get the disbursements for the annual, if you want to go back farther, I don't want to make more work for fiscal for sure.
I just think.
But
I
just so that we
remember
have an idea on-
2022 budget that I did see other legal costs
Right,
outside of
sure.
corporation.
Yeah, and it'd be great to
counsel,
have an
or
apples to
your
apples
county.
comparison, right? I
Absolutely.
mean, I was just
I think that's important. as
concerned
well.
that, you know, that we're,
And then also, I think maybe Mr. Gibbs, I don't know if you're the right person or Lene, that we could take a look at the lawsuits or any kind of legal activities that occurred, just so we have an accurate comparison for 2022 versus 2023. If we're going to require a report for Coleman Legal and their expenses, and we're going
Right,
to do a
right, for sure.
comparative for 2022.
Right.
Does that sound
Commissioner
fair?
Cosby, I believe you're hitting on the distinction between corporation counsel and then the legal expenses covered under the insurance authority. So I mean, we can
Correct.
break down both the insurance authority expenses and corporation counsel for both 2022 and 2023.
So
if
just that, yeah, we have a
requested.
fair comparison of services that are being rendered and rationale for why. I think that's important from 2022 to 2023.
So this is a county, just to be clear, this is a county accounts payable, so not the insurance authority payments. The insurance authority payments are tracked by claim case.
Sure.
So-
And what I'm looking for, Karen, and I mean, there can be other commissioners that speak up to this as well, is just accuracy in how much the county is spending for legal costs or for legal services, you know, so let's compare those year over year and rationale for why. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, we can certainly get that information, although just to be clear, that is not the purpose of the accounts payable listing. The accounts payable is meant to represent everything the county has paid for the previous month. It's not meant to provide what you're asking for. We can certainly
No, I
get that
totally
information.
understand, it, Administrator Gibbs. I'm just asking, like, you know, this is the first time we've seen this disbursement list. And I just want to make sure, is this tracking for the year? Is this an abnormal amount for this 3-week period? Just so we have an idea on some of these vendors, you know, more of an annualized, you know, we're
Yeah.
already into.
Yeah, I mean,
March.
I wouldn't expect
Right.
that information to be in an accounts payable report,
Right,
but that is something we could
okay, great.
discuss.
And then,
But
quick,
logically speaking, though, I mean, 3 week, we can't look at it. for
right,
3 week
exactly.
period.
That's why I saw it this morning. I'm like, I don't know if that's an abnormality. But, you know, if we compare contracted costs for last year versus contracted costs for this year, it would seem to be abnormally high this year, but maybe that's not tracking for the full year, right? And then just a quick follow-up to that. Regarding the insurance authority, does this board have some sort of input on insurance authority actions or no? I'm specifically concerned about yesterday's appeal of the preliminary injunction, but that obviously wasn't brought to us,
The insurance authority, as you know, has its own board
right?
that makes decisions for the insurance
Okay,
authority.
so the insurance authority would make that decision regarding any litigation.
Yeah, that is under the purview of the insurance authority.
Okay, so
The insurance
any
authority board.
actions from corporate counsel on behalf of the county itself, outside of litigation that belongs to the Board of Commissioners? Any action for litigation purposes belongs to the board, the insurance authority board?
Generally, yes. Well, I don't know if we have any
Okay.
updates on that, but
Right.
And do we have any oversight of the insurance authority board, or is that independent completely?
I believe that the commissioner of the full Board of Commissioners has some authority as far as appointing or removing.
Okay,
But the Insurance Authority Board has oversight over the Insurance Authority.
okay, so the Board of Commissioners does not have a oversight over the insurance authority in the actions that it may take.
No, not directly.
What do you mean by directly?
Well, we're voting members. There are two.
Yeah, if you're on the
I
Insurance
didn't
Authority.
catch that,
Board.
sorry. What did you say, Commissioner Crespo? I didn't catch that.
There are three voting members actually on the.
Okay,
Insurance
so
Authority.
the oversight of the insurance authority is provided through the presence of those three commissioners on the insurance authority. But the full board does not have any oversight over the actions of the insurance authority.
Generally, yes.
I'm sorry,
Generally, yes. that is the
generally,
case.
again, what does generally mean though?
Uh,
I don't want to, I'm not trying to be,
we'll
but
discuss
I
this
want to know what
offline,
that
but
means.
The chairman of the Board of Commissioners has authority over some boards to remove or add members. I'll
Right.
need to go and look at the specific rules for the Insurance Authority Board. So there may be some ability there, but generally speaking, the Insurance Authority Board has purview over the actions of
Okay.
the Insurance Authority.
Yeah, I guess I'm still kind of confused what generally means. I mean, either we have authority or we don't have authority over.
I'm not going to get into word games with you. If you want to discuss this later.
I'm
we
not,
can
I'm
do
not
that.
trying to play semantics. I'm just trying
But
to
I've
say,
given you your answer.
where does
The
our
Insurance Authority
oversight
Board
begin and
has
end?
purview over the actions of the Insurance Authority. That is your answer.
You. Commissioner Rhodey?
Yes, so Gretchen, I appreciate you requesting that if we go back and look, further into corporate counsel costs, that we do look at a 2022 versus 2023 comparison. I've seen figures as high as $1 million in corporation counsel for 2022. So I think it would actually be a really good idea for us to go back and see what our actual expenses were there and why that figure was perhaps that high.
Thank you.
So,
So Commissioner Moss was,
Okay.
and I'll get you
Sure.
next.
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm
Sorry.
okay.
Commissioner Bergman?
So my question is to Mr. Gibbs. I believe there, the insurance authority has discretion over how those dollars are spent within that insurance authority, correct?
Right.
And so the dollars that we're looking at in terms of corporate counsel expenses, are they available for us to see as a commission?
I believe those are available in the minutes of the Insurance Authority meetings.
And those are public?
I believe so. I can get that information from you.
Okay, my understanding is that they weren't public. But if they are, I'd like to see those perhaps in our packet next time.
I will look at how we can get that information.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Commissioner Zalstra or Bergman, have you ever served on the Insurance Authority
Yes.
in your capacity? So you are aware of what's
Yes.
available and what isn't available?
Right.
Thank you. All right. Any further discussion? All right. So in item number 2, do we want to go ahead and go to a voice vote?
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebo,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. On to number 3, which is Parks and Recreation Personnel Requests. Do I have a motion to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners request to change one full-time FTE benefited Natural Resources Manager unclassified pay grade 12 to a coordinator of Natural Resources and Stewardship unclassified pay grade 14 at a cost of $12,471 to be paid with vacancy savings in fiscal year 2023.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Do we have discussion?
Wondered what the
Yeah.
definition of vacancy savings
Savings, yeah, I like, yeah,
is. Sounds great.
I do. So already budgeted, Chris.
Good morning. So when a position is budgeted, we budget for the full year. On occasion, someone leaves and there's a space of time before we could fill that position. And Parks had a few of those vacancies earlier. So this change, the cost increase for the current year would be funded with those savings and then planning to cover the full cost in 2024.
Great.
Wonderful. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none. Go ahead and go to a voice vote.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby,
Yes,
motion passes.
thank you. Moving on to item number 4, agenda item 4, which is tax year 2023 millage rate resolution. Do I have a motion to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the resolution establish millage rates for tax year 2023?
So move.
Second.
When do we have discussion? Karen?
Good morning. So this is the final step in the budget, the fiscal year 23 budget process, which ends with setting the tax rate. The tax rate is disclosed and discussed at the time the budget is adopted, and it is discussed at the public hearing for the budget. So if you remember last month, equalization came forward and provided the taxable values. That is a point that we need that information to do something called a Headley calculation. And so that's why this comes so late in the year, because we have to have that calculation completed after the values are set to know if we need to roll back the millage rates. And so we are 8 months into our fiscal year, and the setting the millage rate is one of the final steps in the budget process and funding the budget. Incidentally, we also make estimates of what that tax value growth is going to be when we plan for the budget. And I think you'll see it in the quarterly report, but the estimates of taxable value that we built the 23-year budget on was almost exactly how they turned out. I mean, I don't know that we've ever been that close. I mean, within like $22,000 of what actually turned out to be. So this is just the final step in setting those rates to fund the fiscal year 23 budget.
Is there other discussion?
Yeah, I'd like
Commissioner
to-
Bonema?
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. This is something that we talked a little bit about, in August, September, as we were looking at things that we'd like to look at as far as trends that are happening in the county. And, I can see the note here is that Ottawa County's operating levy is the 6th lowest in the state. That's great that we're top 10, but we used to be top 5, right? And I'm seeing a trend here where we're even better than that in years past. And so we seem to be sliding, on that scale. That trend is, I'd like to see it level out. I'd like to see us get back to the 5th lowest and the 4th lowest and to compete for the top 3. Are there things that we can do to set goals, for fiscal, to see what they can do, to see what's going on in the state, to see if we can run more efficiently and improve that slide as we continue to rise there?
We are the 6th tax rate. When you look at county operating, we are the 5th county. If you look at the total tax rate, which includes our special millages, I tend to focus in on the county operating levy when I say 6th. So I think sometimes you'll hear that, 5th and 6th, just the differentiation between the two. There are, I think our budget process, that's what occurs during the budget process. It starts with, historically it started with the board strategic planning of some of the initiatives or some of the areas that you're wanting to look at and want more information on. So I think by setting those objectives, goals, we can ask for a variety of things. I think there's a number of things in Ottawa County being the fastest growing that might make that challenging, but it's certainly something during the budget process that we can take a look at.
I would really love that for the citizens of the county. I think if you look at financial times and different sources of information out there, we're certainly headed towards a recession. And with inflation hitting so many dinner tables, millages wherever we can, help out the citizens, is a place. If we can tax them less and maintain a great service, I think there's a lot of people that like to see a little help at tax time when it's time to pay property taxes. So.
So, and I do understand that that is challenging with inflation. I also we had, and I know you've heard this in the past, but we've generally taken citizen surveys every other year to gauge service levels, and if citizens are happy with those service levels and they're at the level in which their tax rates are. And historically, I don't remember the exact percentages right now, but there has been a high degree of happiness, not necessarily happiness to pay taxes, but satisfaction with their service levels compared to the cost of their service levels. And I know recently with the growth in property values, you'll see an increase in your taxes as well, but you also are seeing an increase in the value of your home.
I understand.
So I think, there's positives there as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I'm thrilled that the value of my home has gone up so much. That's great, but I don't plan to sell it, so it doesn't really help me that much. But
Sure.
but at the same time, I think we sit in a position now, whereas conservatives, we want to cut wasteful spending, find ways to give tax dollars back to the citizens. I understand that we give a great bang for the buck here in Ottawa County as far as services and that people are happy. Absolutely. But if there's ways that we can work together going forward to improve on that, I think this is something that I'd like focused on a little bit more. Is, if we're at the 5th or the 6th, can we get to the 4th or the 5th? Can we get to the 3rd or 4th lowest in the state? I'm competitive, as you can tell. So let's see what we can do there. Thank you.
Mhm.
Can I add,
Commissioner Bergman?
I think it's important for us to remember when we look at the total tax dollar, I think that might be important for us to see again that our tax, part of the total taxes that people pay is a pretty small amount in terms of the total tax. The schools by and large take the largest percentage of that tax.
So we can show that as well. I believe when you break down that dollar, and the county is the smallest portion of the total tax dollars. So making a impact is difficult,
Which is
just because it's the smallest.
I appreciate what you're saying, Jacob, but the amount of change that we would make would be minute in terms of.
But I'll take it
total.
because that's
Yes,
the piece we
I
control.
understand.
That's the piece we control. I don't control the school boards and their
I
spending, but
understand.
we do
Yes.
have the reins on this one. So yeah, thank you though.
Any other discussion? One of the things I have to say, if we are gaining additional revenue, we have been denying services to a portion of our people. I'd like to see that if we're going to bring in extra revenue, that some of those people are well served in our community with that. So just my little editorial on it, but thank you, Karen, very much. All right. So no further discussion. Okay, so item number 4, we'll go to voice vote for that. And that is the millage rate resolution.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel. Yes. Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 5, which is the American Rescue Plan Act project funding. Do I have a motion to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the use of $9,441,926 in ARPA funds for revenue replacement in order to use the resultant budgetary savings of the same amount to fund the future initiatives and an approach which made it administratively easier to comply with grant rules?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Do we have discussion? Karen, do you want to explain? Thank you.
This is a practice that we started when we originally received these funds. And the county, there is a calculation that the guidelines allow for. If you've lost revenue during the period of COVID, you could use your dollars to replace that revenue to provide direct services to the residents. We have we have done that. We have done those calculations, and the revenue replacement has been used to provide public safety support and court. And I think in the past, we used it for prosecuting attorney's office, providing those direct services to residents. That results in budgetary savings, which then the board had committed to those projects that we've discussed at length with the ARPA task force. And so this is really the final revenue calculation that we've done. It's done on a calendar basis. So we, at 12/31/22, we did that calculation again. At this point, the $9.4 million that we're suggesting in projects would produce budgetary savings that would then fund the remaining ARPA, the remaining initiatives that the board had identified. I think there was $7.5 million for broadband and $5 million for CIP infrastructure potentially, and then about $750,000 that was unassigned.
Any discussion? Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Commissioner
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mhm.
The 7.5 for 123 net, have we approached Guidehouse about that? Is that something that we could fund with kind of original ARPA dollars, or is that something that we would need to do this process in order to fund?
I have not approached Guidehouse if it would be eligible under the true ARPA guidelines. We have found, administratively, it's much easier to use the payroll and the expenses providing direct services under the revenue replacement rules under the ARPA guidelines.
Okay.
And it certainly is eligible under board initiatives.
For sure.
Commissioner Moss?
It might be helpful to note, I believe the vast majority of ARPA dollars were used in this way across all counties in the state. And so it's pretty normal to use the revenue replacement method, very effective.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I guess just
Commissioner
one,
Zalstra?
just one last question. This would zero out our original ARPA dollars, right?
Correct.
So if we find a project that we can't use commissioner discretion funds, or I'm sorry, what is the official name of that fund?
It's board initiatives.
Board initiatives fund. If we find a project that we can't use board initiative funds for, then we'd kind of be stuck, right?
There would be no more ARPA dollars to turn to.
So we couldn't, I mean, so we're talking about 123 net, and that obviously seems like we can use the board initiatives funds for that. But just off the top of my head, there's probably 3 or 4 million left in that after the 123 net. Does that sound about right?
I think the broadband was 7.5 million.
Right. And I
And
think
we
there was
talked
like
about,
11 million.
we talked about 5 million set aside for capital
Okay.
improvement
Okay.
infrastructure for county
Right.
projects.
So but say if the
And
board
so
wants
all
to
of
do
that
something
is
that's-
eligible.
that is eligible with the board initiatives, but I'm saying if there is a project
Right,
that
like,
wouldn't fit that board initiatives fund parameters, then we'd kind of be stuck.
like the ODC network.
Right.
We had
exactly.
funded that.
And that was
childcare.
my concern, is if we zero out the original ARPA
That
dollars,
is
then
correct.
we don't have the option like we did with outdoor discovery, right?
That is
Um,
correct.
Is there a way we can kind of split this up and not use the entire ARPA allocation, the original ARPA allocation?
So originally, just for background, Corporation Council had ruled that there has to be a county, you have to have authority under statute to fund a grant. And so when the ODC project was presented, Corporation Council at that time reviewed and said, there is no statute for us to build childcare centers. And so, but it is an allowable expense under the ARPA grant, under the grants that are afforded to us. So we funded that particular grant directly from the ARPA dollars. So we've done lost revenues, revenue replacement, and one $7.5 million grant to the ODC for the childcare. That's what Doug is referring to. It would be at the board's discretion, but it would be my recommendation that the revenue replacement is administratively very easy.
Right.
And
No, I totally understand that. And I totally understand what Commissioner Moss is saying too. I mean, we have obviously taken advantage of that fund, the board initiatives fund, do a lot of things. But I'm kind of concerned about if we get a project we like and we find that, that's not statutorily, permitted, then we're kind of stuck, right?
based on Corporation Council's direction in November, that is my understanding.
Okay. I don't know if there's any discussion on that possibility, or we're all committed to the remaining funds being used for capital improvement. And that would, really kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily tie our hands, but definitely take an option off the table if we find a project we'd like that corporate council says we couldn't use board initiatives funds to pay for.
Commissioner Rhodey.
I would just say that I think we have spent a lot of money through ARPA funds outside of the specific responsibilities of county government. And I think it would be wise for us to invest what's remaining back into the county and into the parts of government that we are responsible for. So that would be my feeling on it.
Commissioner Moss.
Sure, I'm comfortable moving forward with the revenue replacement and approving this.
So we should go to vote. No further discussion. Let's go to vote.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
No.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 6 is the quarterly financial status report. Do I have a motion to receive information that detailed financial statements for the general fund and mental health fund, as well as higher level summary for the special revenues fund?
So moved.
So moved.
So moved.
All right. Is there discussion?
Was there a second on that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard second. I apologize. Second.
I'll make a second.
And discussion? Looks like none. We'll go ahead and go to a voice vote on that.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, which is the fiscal year 2023 budget adjustments. Do I have a motion to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the 2023 budget adjustments per attached schedule?
So moved.
I'll support that.
Do we have discussion?
Just a real quick
Mr.
question.
Zastra?
Thank you, appreciate that. A real quick question, Karen, on 7-1493. I looked at my notes, I didn't really see this. Is this something that Terry Trails is kind of being very generous with, or is there some legal issue with this, or? I didn't quite understand that.
I guess I'm not sure exactly why the neighborhood association offered to
I
do
mean, if they're
that.
being generous, it's very cool. I mean,
could
I don't
probably-
know if there's a legal issue.
It was discussed at the Parks Commission, so perhaps somebody.
Does somebody know? Okay.
Commissioner Medema?
All right, since I serve on parks, I can probably answer that. It wasn't in our budget plans to currently work on stairs, but Terry Trails really wanted
Oh, okay,
the stairs
cool.
now.
Cool.
And so they came forward and said that they would like to work with the county. And so they're actually paying for the biggest part of the project. We're contributing a very small amount, maybe of 5,000 is what
Okay.
I'm not positive, but I think
Yeah,
it's a
for sure.
really small
Okay.
number. And so Terry Trails has agreed to pay for those stairs because it goes right up into their neighborhood association.
Okay. Yeah, and if that's the case, I'd love to have the board recognize, their generous donation, because that's really cool then.
I would agree. Need to say thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So let's go to a voice vote to approve the fiscal year 2023 budget adjustments.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby,
Yes,
motion passes.
wonderful. Moving on to committee reports, and we have the treasurer's financial month-end update with Amanda Price.
Good morning. Just wanted to share a couple of things. The Fed is meeting today and tomorrow is expected to raise interest rates another 25 basis points. Earlier, maybe last week or the week before, there was some talk of them lowering interest rates, probably at the end of this year. With the bank instability of the 4 banks that we've experienced over the last a month or so, that's in question now. So we'll see. And then the economies, as Commissioner Bonema mentioned, is kind of slowing down a little bit, maybe hitting some stagflation. So we'll see. I just want to update you on that. We did, I think Cheryl Clark was here last month and reported that we did hold our foreclosure deadline, and we foreclosed on 1 commercial building. It's in the middle of a apartment complex. At one point, all the apartments in this area were owned by 1 individual owner. They've since been sold off to individuals. So the pool community center in the center of that complex was not maintained, did not have taxes paid on it, and that's the building we foreclosed on. All other properties that we foreclosed on were either vacant or gap parcels, which is continuing the last few years of our not foreclosing on any residential properties. So I think that's a big plus. Other than that, I don't have anything else to report unless you have questions for me.
Discussion, Commissioner Bergman?
Mhm.
Is the amount of cash that we have on hand, is that pretty consistent? Or is that abnormally high? It looks like $64 million in cash. Not really cash, but cash.
Yeah, it's,
Is that abnormally high or is that pretty consistent?
we've got that invested in money markets, so,
Yeah.
and CDs. I would think that is a little high, but that's what we're doing with the money right now is
Because
keeping it.
It's a better return on investment.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm assuming. Right.
It's going from COVID and when we were trying to buy things at 0.40 interest to now when we were getting about 4% or more in interest. It's wonderful, but so that's where we're keeping the money.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for this
Oh.
handout. This handout is very informative, easy to use. It helps the public understand how to avoid tax foreclosure.
Mhm.
Is this available online in a digital format as
It
well? at
is,
the
it's
website?
available online at well, I could put it on our website. It is a publication of the Michigan Association of County Treasurers.
Yeah,
And so,
at mactreasures.org.
mhm.
So for those that are interested in that information, I think that's very useful. Thank you for this.
Yeah, and if you want, I also have this information in my office, but there's a timeline that the County Treasurers Association has put together of how the foreclosure process works. And it's a 3-year timeline. So I'll just mention 2 really quickly. Last week, Minnesota went before the US Supreme Court in a case called Hennepin County, Tyler versus Hennepin County. And very similar circumstances to Michigan's foreclosure process. So I'm just mentioning that to you because that will have some impact if the Supreme Court decides to rule in that case. So I wish I could have gone. Some of our county treasurers did go, and it would have been a lifetime thrill to be in the Supreme Court listening to a case that has applicability to us. But so we will let you know what happens with that case.
Thank you, Amanda.
Mhm.
Very interesting. All right. Well, next up on the agenda is public comment. Second round of public comment. Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Right. Oh, yeah. Wait, let's put it on.
I need you to give them, I need to give everybody. Yeah.
Shocking.